So we had these meetings. We had a worship meeting that did not go well.
No.
We had a young family, young adult, young couples, whatever you want to call it, meeting.
Yeah.
Did not go well. But we're here to be like vessels for the Lord and celebrate the holiday season.
The holidays are among us again.
Faith can feel like hearts and butterflies until someone lights a match and burns it all to the ground. Welcome to the Burning Butterflies podcast.
The sad thing is that there's abuse of every kind within the church. But the spiritual abuse is the stuff that just
What's a place there shouldn't be abuse? Like, there just shouldn't be abuse in a place that claims to.
Well, it ruins your soul. If you're new here, we suggest listening to our prologue episode first.
This is the story of two women's journey through toxic church culture and spiritual abuse, all while finding healing in the end.
Sometimes it's just the facts, and if you get offended by it, that's a you issue. And if we can't be mature enough to have these conversations, even if some of the topics are difficult, then shame on us.
At Come As You Are, we have like our normal lineup of stuff, right? We do Thanksgiving baskets every year. We do not have service on the Thursday night of Thanksgiving every year. It's okay to skip service for Thanksgiving, but not the 4th of July, remember? Because
Right.
we serve the Lord. But we could celebrate
Gratitude and turkeys is the thing.
Yeah, and turkeys. Yeah.
It's so interesting, but like, just think about that. Like, how, like, when we say that, like, Tom, like, picked and choose what he decided to bandwagon in the non-denominational circle, like, when you think about the fact that, like, so many Christians sway more towards the allegiance to America and like, I don't know, it's just so funny, but we're gonna have church on 4th of July, like, but it wasn't to celebrate America, like, it was, that's not more important. Your drinking and fireworks isn't more important. Where if he had jumped on the bandwagon of Christian nationalism, it would have been
he probably could have packed
fireworks
the place.
and guns blazing church service. No, it was, you can't put America above Jesus.
Yes. But we could put turkeys above him.
Yeah, and so that doesn't just prove that we just picked and chose, what was our fancy. That's funny.
Yes. So the Griswolds had done their little, like, the mini summer park events. They did all these little mini events, and it went really well. And we actually were seeing return from that. We had people come to the church from those events. And so we were seeing the fruits of that happening. And so when it comes time for Thanksgiving, they want to do a Thanksgiving dinner, and they want to put it on at the church, and they want to cook for people who typically might spend Thanksgiving alone. Maybe you are an older couple and all of your kids are grown and they're, going to their in-laws for Thanksgiving. Or maybe you're recently widowed or recently divorced. We had a divorced mom, and her kids are spending Thanksgiving with her ex-husband, and so she was going to be alone. Things like that. So they had a heart to care for these people, and they wanted to do this big Thanksgiving dinner, a community Thanksgiving dinner. As we discovered and we discussed in our 40 days of community, using the kitchen became a little bit of a touchy subject. And touching stuff and moving things around within the kitchen was a touchy subject. The Griswolds, I'm not 100% sure how it started. I think they asked about dishes, if we had any nice dishes. And we said, no, we just use like the really fancy disposable ones, right? And they're like, well, we foresee this being a yearly thing. We foresee doing more things. They had done the Valentine's Day dinner where you did your dinner theater, and Froggy, I don't even want to say he shared the gospel. Froggy talked into a microphone. Um, and so they wanted to do more of these events where they would cook for people, right? So they thought, well, it would be beneficial if we bought some dishes for the church. They weren't looking to do, I mean, it's not like they were going for like hundreds or thousands of dishes, right? They weren't doing full sets. Like we had some silverware. They were going to buy some more silverware. It was mostly plates. Like we weren't looking for salad plates and coffee cups and all of that kind of stuff too. They were just looking to buy some plain white cheap dinner plates. You know, the ones where you can go to Walmart and get them for like 89 cents a piece, right? And they had actually gone and looked at a bunch of different Walmarts in the area, and they figured they could get these dishes, and they figured they could have them paid for because so many people got on board with these little mini summer park events that people gave money towards this ministry. So this ministry went beyond just these park events. It became like its own ministry, right? Not just an event, but a full ministry. And so people had given money to this ministry. They asked if they could go buy plates with the money they had. They were told by Lori in the office, yes, absolutely, you can do that. They had talked to people, and people had told them, like, hey, I wrote a check for $200. I wrote a check for $50 towards your ministry. So they calculated how much money had been given to their ministry. So just a little reminder before we go any farther, when you give to Come As You Are, you write the check to Come As You Are. Then on the memo line, you put where you would like that money to go. But in reality, it's going into one of two bank accounts. There's the big general bank account that funds all of the ministries. So youth, children's, this ministry that the Griswolds had started, worship, all ministries. Then we have another bank account that the church pays their bills with. So that is where the money for, the electricity and the gas and the water bill and all of that stuff comes out of that account. So when you write a check and you say, I want it to go to this ministry that the Griswolds are doing, really in all reality, it's going into one big fund, and it is Lori's job to keep track of all the pennies and where all the pennies should go. We've discussed this in length over on our Patreon. I encourage you to go listen to those episodes. You can buy singular episodes if you don't want to subscribe. But we've discussed in length what we have uncovered about how this church used their money. This is when the Griswolds discover how the church uses their money, because they think, because they have been told by people, you should have X amount of dollars. I don't know how much it was, but just for like argument's sake, nice round number, let's say they said you have $500, right? So they go to Lori. They say, hey, we're going to go buy some plates. We're going to use the money we know we have been given. And she said, okay, do you want me to look that up for you? And they said, no, we've talked to people. We know how much money we have. They were proactive. She goes, great, here's the card. She writes down the PIN number for the little debit card on a sticky note and hands it to you. and says, please bring back all the receipts, and she'll have a little form you have to fill out when you return the card. They go and they start driving around to Walmart's, right? They might get 5 plates here, and then they go to the next one down the road, and that one has 20 plates, right? And they weren't looking for a bunch. I think they were looking for like something like 100 or maybe 120, right? And so they start buying plates, and they're going to a few different Walmarts, right? And they go and they're buying supplies for this Thanksgiving dinner. They're buying turkeys, they're buying bread, they're buying ingredients to make this big community dinner. They're about an hour or so in and have gone to a few different stores, and Lori calls them panicked. Stop spending money. What are you doing? Why are you spending so much? You need to bring the card back immediately. So they're confused. They come back, and I'm sitting in the office, and they come in and they're like, what the heck? And I'm like, I don't know. Lori's panicked because they're overspending. And Lori has told Tom, the Griswolds are out there just spending whatever they want. They didn't have permission to spend this much. So then the Griswolds start asking, what happened to the money that was given to us?
Right.
We were told we had X amount of dollars. What happened to that? And it was flipped back on them. First of all, how dare you not ask Lori how much you were allowed to spend? Why would you?
Yeah.
Why would you not ask? Well, because they knew. Because they had people say, hey, just so you know, I donated this much. They felt like they had more than enough.
Yeah.
To cover. Then it was flipped back on them because when someone gives money to the church, they are entrusting it to the Lord. And the Lord will spend that money however he sees fit. So, in the moment, back in 2019, I could not have told you where that money went because to me it didn't make any sense. Lori does a great job of keeping track of the money. I don't understand where it would have went. It must be your mistake. Someone must have told you they donated money and really didn't.
Yeah.
But now, hindsight 2025. Remember when I said we were going to Georgia for this conference and we were all supposed to pay a certain amount, and Tom said, why don't we just wait? And then we never ended up having to pay anything. Now, I'm not saying the Griswolds had enough money to cover the whole Georgia trip. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I'm just saying, if Tom was looking to find money in places that he thought would never notice that he was taking money from them, I could see how he would take money from there.
Well, yeah. And I mean, the amount of money was considerable. It wasn't substantial, but it was considerable. People were on board with this ministry and they were writing big checks. I mean, not like, we're not talking enormous, but they were writing decent amount of checks that they were going to fund an entire Thanksgiving dinner for people. I mean, we're talking.
I was going to say it was enough that they were going to buy, like I said, I want to say it was like 100 to 150 plates.
Yeah.
And they were making dinner, like there was like 40 people who showed up to this dinner.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, they weren't like, you weren't getting the stovetop stuffing and the canned green beans and the,
and so essentially
the canned shaped cranberry sauce.
Right.
You weren't getting homemade stuff.
Homemade, yeah. And so basically, people were writing like, I'm going to write a check to this ministry for $500. And then if for that event they only spent $200, they assumed that money was still in their budget. But in reality, the church, the Lord, Tom was spending it on wherever he seemed fit. It, and honestly, like, it doesn't surprise me because I had that same issue with that computer, like with that other ministry where we needed a computer.
Yep.
And we went and checked our budget with Lori, and she was like, "Oh, you have like $2,000 in your budget for your ministry." Like, on paper, we had $2,000. And so we were like, "Awesome. We can afford out
A
of that
brand new laptop.
$2,000 to buy like a $500 laptop,
Yeah.
$600 laptop, and then still have enough money within the ministry to keep supplies and the food on the shelves and stuff." And Tom convinced us to use that used old ministry laptop. And then when that broke in 2 weeks, whatever it was, and we went back and we're like, "This computer doesn't even work. We need to buy one." There was no money in our budget because he sold us that broken laptop and bought music equipment for the worship team. He did the same thing to this ministry.
Yep. Exactly. 100%. So this kind of starts a little bit of grumblings. The Griswolds go on. They still do another event where they kind of put on like a best decorated house at Christmas time, and the whole community can, like, you can call in and you can say like, "Hey, my neighbor at this address, he's got a killer Christmas light display." So you nominated people, then we put out a list. Here's the list of nominations. And then you came on and you submitted it, and you submitted your vote. I went and we, like, so it was kind of like, take your family. It's a nice cheap thing, go drive around town and look at these light displays, and then let us know what your family thinks is the best. And you vote, and then we put together little like gift baskets. We did like some gift cards to some local businesses, and some little goodies, and I think like a Christmas ornament, and of course a gospel track and an invitation to come to our Christmas service. But we gave those out to all the winners, and I mean that went over really well too. But the Griswolds, it was never the same for them.
No.
It was never the same. For this Thanksgiving, I didn't go to the community. Like, that seems very much like something that I would have been like all over. But I went to Brandy's house. And there's a very specific reason I went to Brandy's house. But before I go into that, is there anything during this holiday time that is going on in your family? Because you're working.
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, same old, on any given Tuesday in my life. I'm like, I mean, anything that like stands out, like this. I mean, I've already talked about, like, I was really feeling the pressure of, like, it was getting harder to go to work because I really just wanted to be involved in ministry full time. Like, for some reason, I thought like that was, I mean, not for some reason, when I know why, but like I felt like my breadwinning career, that was keeping our family afloat, needed to go. And I was called to lead women's ministry and worship team, and I needed to be 100% dedicated to the church. And I was missing out, and I was getting grief because I was always working and I couldn't participate in anything. And, and I think the biggest struggles during this time was just Froggy being responsible for running like, he was a excellent housewife. He really wasn't. He could have been, though. Like, honestly, like, man, and I mean, I don't mean that in any kind of like, people need to get over this gender role garbage, but like, if he had just embraced, like, he could have done ministry, he could have run the house, he was good at it, but he resented it and didn't want to do it. And I was just fine, being the with the role reversal. But So I mean, it's just this battle after battle after battle. And then like, Brandy had been watching, my youngest two kids through a lot of this because Froggy couldn't handle it. They did spend a lot of time with Charlotte, throughout this time and stuff. So which was always like me neglecting I was really made to feel guilty about not being a
Yeah.
good mom because
You're at work. You're not a good
I'm
Christian
at work.
mom.
Yeah,
Who's going to love your children like you can?
right. But then like, okay, but like I was a single mom without being a single mom throughout the majority of this marriage anyway. I mean, I was the
Yeah.
breadwinner. It's like I even remember like having conversations at work with like, male managers. And I'm like, you guys can just shut up because like you have a wife at home. Like you have a wife at home cooking and cleaning and doing your laundry. I am the wife at home. Oh, and I'm the man at the job too. So, like let's
Yeah.
be real. But so, I mean, tension, frustration, but just really I would say during this time was that pressure to be home. I was homeschooling. And so because that became like I feel like it worked out and it worked out for really good reasons, which we'll get into, but I would say the majority of it was a form of isolation,
Yeah.
wrapped up in a pretty little
Christian bow.
Christian bow.
Mhm.
And so I would homeschool in the mornings and then I would go to work at night. But yeah, I this was for me, it was just definitely more a time of like that battle.
Yeah. Did you guys do holidays with Tom and Charlotte? Like, did
Yeah,
you ever like go
we
home
did
to like your mom's?
everything. We did like everything. Sometimes we would go to California for holidays. But like for the most part, like we did everything
Yeah.
with Tom and Charlotte because that was the only way that like Froggy knew how to do anything or put anything like there was no us. It was whatever they were doing and then we were always there. Like we
Mhm.
didn't do anything on our own. I mean unless I planned like I was going to go to California or whatever like for Christmas. So we did do those things. But
Was that ever a battle? Like, hey, we're going to see my mom for Christmas instead of spending Christmas with your parents?
no. No, I don't remember ever like fighting over that. We just always fought. There was always anytime the attention wasn't on Froggy, then there was a fight. And like, I'm sorry, sir, but it can't always be about you.
Yeah.
Like there's other people in the world and other people have opinions and other people are experiencing this holiday too. But if you did anything that wasn't what he was comfortable doing and he's not a go out and do crazy things or whatever. So
Yeah.
like I wanted to go. We have this really cool reservoir, north of here in Fort Collins. And I had never been to this ginormous, amazing lake, right? Reservoir as an out of stater. Like I've never been there. And I
Yeah.
was always like, I want to go. And he's like, oh, it's stupid. We can't go. You don't want to do that. No, yes, I do. I do want to do. You know where I spend a lot of my summers? At that amazing reservoir. Like it's amazing. Like, and I'm an outdoor person. Like I love to camp. I love to hike. I love to I just love to be outside. And I love to
Yeah.
always be going. And he's not like that at all. So we
Yeah.
just always did whatever he wanted to do. So
Yeah.
and a few times, like I mean, and then I had to have really wanted to go and do it to convince him to go along because he would make it miserable. Like if it
Yeah. For
wasn't his
yeah.
idea, like why are we here? What are we like a child? How much longer? Why
Well,
is
and
this what we're doing?
I would imagine like if you were in California with your mom, his behavior would be more so ridiculous because at least his dad what he wasn't trying to like show off for his dad.
Right. Well, he would be he would be polite always in public. to anybody, like very polite, but behind closed doors. So there was always a struggle, and I'll have more stories about this like later where it really comes to a head. But like, so like one year we went out to California, we went to an amusement park, and like he threw a fit like a baby and like stormed off because nobody wanted to ride the ride or do whatever he wanted to do. We have children, they don't want to go ride that ride again, but you can go do it.
Yeah.
And then, so he got mad and stormed off. Well, I took the kids and we went and had a good time. I don't play like, there's some things where I will say, like, I probably did have a lot of struggles because there's stuff that I just don't put up with.
Yeah.
And because, like, I really, like, honestly, when they said if you would just behave, you wouldn't have these problems. I mean, it's ridiculous, but also if I would have just behaved, I probably
Yeah.
wouldn't have had some of the issues
You
I
and your
had.
damn mouth, Melissa, if you would just be
I know,
compliant,
but there's
he wouldn't
just
have had to
you.
rip the door off the hinges.
I know. And I mean, like, I'm not excusing his behavior in any way, shape, or
No,
form. But
no.
what I'm
He's a
saying is,
grown ass man.
like when it's hard for me being the type of woman that I am, because I am strong and independent, and I can articulate my thoughts and opinions and my feelings, and I don't put up with I'm sorry, I've been through a lot. Like, just to stop, right? Like, I do come off with that attitude a lot of times, but
Yeah.
none of that excuses his behavior in any way,
Yeah.
shape, or form. And so this was just a real, like, I would almost say it's probably, that tension before the storm, not the calm before the storm, but like the building tension, like something's
Mhm.
going to have to give. I can't keep working at my job. I either have to pick my job or I have to leave my marriage.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's just never okay. We're always fighting. We're always battling these things. And I'm just doing the best I can in survival mode to raise my kids, keep everything together, show up at my job and be professional. I've had the cops called. Been called at work because the cops have been called. It's like, could you people just behave so I can like not be embarrassed at work? Those kind of like,
Yeah.
so there's this constant tension. And then it's like, okay, well, do I quit my job? I got to be home with my kids. So I thought like having my kids at home with me, like I was protecting them, so I would say was the time of tension before
Before the explosion.
it explodes. Yeah.
And like, I just want to remind our listeners, Froggy is kind of working through all of this, but like, he's not bringing in enough money to cover your bills. So if you were to quit your job, like,
yeah, I'm trying to remember who or where he was working for at this time. I don't know.
He could have been in between because he kind of fluxed all over.
Yeah, no, he was working. I want to say, don't quote me on this. I think he had, because there were a couple contractors type people, like home improvement type guys. One more like, different types of jobs. One more like, I don't know what kind of jobs, whatever, but two different like home contractor remodeler type guys that worked at our church that Froggy had worked for over the years. And I think at this point he had finally burnt the bridge with one of them and the other one he was working for. But this was like mom and pop stuff, right? We're not talking about huge home builder, like you're making a ton of money. This is like handyman Joe getting jobs from people through the church and networking and all of that. And then he's going and working and making, some money, right?
Yeah.
And I would say that if he was working 40 hours a week consistently, he would have been making good money and then we would be fine. But it wasn't like that for this guy in his business.
Yeah.
It was hit or miss on when he had jobs and when he didn't, he'd go to work. So Froggy had actually started working at the restaurant that I worked at. And
I forgot because this was my favorite thing in the world.
Yeah.
When we planned this podcast.
He was washing dishes
while you were the manager. I love it so much.
Yeah. And then he was like, I don't understand why I can't be a manager. Well, what do you mean? Like, I should have a collared shirt. Why? Because I'm froggy and I'm better than washing dishes. Then go get another job. Like, I don't
Yeah.
understand. Like, we would
Mm.
go round and round. And I'm not saying this to be an a-hole. Like, I literally am not. And I'm not saying that, like, you have to have some amazing, outrageous, like, education or resume or whatever. Like, it's restaurant management. I'm also not putting it down. But at the end of the day, I started working in the food and beverage industry when I was 15 years old.
Yeah.
I started managing kitchens when I was 20 years old. And I have done every job in a restaurant now for 32 plus years. And so I don't know, I'm kind of a restaurant expert,
I just like no, this if you hear nothing else, like maybe this is your first episode you're listening to and you're like, who is Froggy at his core? He is a grown ass man who has never worked in this industry before. His wife has decades of experience and has been a manager and has been thriving as a manager, that other people are looking to her for answers. Other managers are looking to her, and he comes in as a dishwasher and is mad
yeah.
because he feels like he should be a manager too.
Yeah. So go
Like,
get you and I mean, this is our conversation. Go get you a management job. Like, go apply. Like, and like, I mean, I even think during this time he had his brother write him up a resume so he could go get himself a collared job. How does his brother like help him like word it? And I'm like, yes, you've done all those things and you're qualified, but I mean, I use that word loosely, qualified, but then he would do the strangest thing and be like, well, nobody will and have this victim mentality. Nobody will hire me. I've never really done anything, but I can. I know I can. I'm supposed to be in charge. I'm a leader. I'm supposed to be a leader. I'm supposed to be in charge. I'm not supposed to be emasculated. I'm a leader, right? And I'm like, this is all, and this is the battle that would go on within him.
do you know what is super shocking to me as you just said all of that?
What?
That he hasn't just gone off and started his own church.
I keep right.
Like, because that verbatim is why Tom started Come As You Are.
I know. Trust you me. I spent 9 years married to this man trying to figure this out, like psychoanalyzing this man. And I was like, I don't understand. Because he would like, even working for these home remodeler guys, right? Like, he would be like, well, he doesn't know what he's doing, and I could do this, and I could do that, and I'm gonna fix this, and I da, right? And then I would be like, hey, we need to get this done. I don't know how to do that. Okay, wait a minute. Like, you just told me that this guy that's actually been doing that for 30 something years and is like really good at like drywall. I don't know, just pick something, right? He's like a drywall expert, and you're running your mouth because you think he's doing something. I don't know why he did it that way. He should be doing it. And then the next week I'm like, hey, we got a hole in our drywall. You want to fix that? I don't know how to do drywall. Why don't you just start your own business? I don't know anything about it. I can't do that, and I don't have any experience in that. You've done these jobs. Like, you know what you're doing. And so, like, I don't know. It's weird. I don't know if it's a weird self-defeatist, like self-sabotage thing or what, but for the way that what he thought he was entitled to, he just as much as he thought he was entitled to it, he just as much never went out and did anything about it.
Yeah.
And I am surprised. Why don't you just go? It's not that difficult. Just go do it.
Yeah.
Just go do it. And I mean, later we'll figure out a little bit more as to why he couldn't really. I mean, but so anyway, yeah. So this is like, the more we're talking about this, then the more like I am remembering, like, yeah, this is really when I said this is the place where tension was like, something had to give.
Yeah.
Something had to give because we could only stay in this state of tension for so long because now he's a dishwasher and, they did move him into kitchen work and everything, but he just wasn't good enough. He needed to be, why are you a manager? I just don't know why you're a manager.
Which makes sense. So we've kind of touched leading up to this about Tom trying to sell Brandy your house.
Yeah.
And, Froggy needs his own place and all of this. So before it was Froggy doesn't have a job that pays as much as Melissa. And Melissa is emasculating Froggy because she makes more than him. And we've tried to get Froggy jobs, but it just doesn't work out. And he's actually gotten fired from a few of the jobs that he was doing really well at and actually making money at. He's gotten fired because eventually the mask is going to fall, right?
He's gotten fired from like every job.
Yeah. So
every job.
Then it is decided that it is not the job. It is the fact that his name is not on the deed to the house. And so if he starts being violent and starts throwing stuff or starts being physically aggressive towards people, Melissa can say, "This is my house, get out."
Yep.
And she has legal standing to call authorities and say, "This is my house. I do not want him here." And so we need to fix that. So we are on this quest to get Froggy his name on a deed. And when that hasn't worked, now Froggy, he's living in a house his name isn't a deed on. He's working at a restaurant where he is
his
a
wife
dishwasher.
is his boss.
And his wife is the manager. Poor baby Froggy. Poor widow Froggy. Yeah, poor Froggy. Well, I spent Thanksgiving this year at Brandy's. I always spend Christmas with my family in Wyoming. That is a hard line I drew, and where I got the balls enough to stand on that for as long as I did, the whole entire time I was at Come As You Are, I never wavered in that. I gave up a lot with my family, with my extended family, with my nuclear family here in my house. I put a lot of people through a lot of hell, but that was the one thing that I stood on all those years. But I did do Thanksgiving with Brandy because Brandy does end up getting a new house. It is not your house.
No.
She gets
in my house.
She gets a big, beautiful house. But during that, during the time where they had sold their old house and bought this new one, there was, I think, 10 days where they did not have a home because like their old house sold 10 days before they were, going to be able to get into their new house. So they came and lived with us. So over on our Patreon, I tell that whole story about we joke and we said we were sister wives and they came and they lived with us, and how it probably that was like I could see how a lifestyle like that could be beneficial because like it was glorious. So I'm gonna tell that whole story over on our Patreon, and we're also going to kind of talk about some of the shady shit that Tom did to kind of help them get into this big, beautiful house, because Tom is still helping them because Tom meddles and everything. But I did Thanksgiving with Brandy and we had a great time. And then Christmas Eve service, like I said, I didn't go. You didn't go because you were working. But Tom has to do Christmas Eve service because Young Gun was doing it. Well, Young Gun is gone. And then Corey and Topanga and Etheridge were doing it for a couple years. Well, Etheridge has left the church. Corey and Topanga have stepped down from the worship team. Beth Moore has had stuff to do with Christmas Eve service in the past. She's gone. And he just got angry with the Griswolds over dishes at Thanksgiving, so we're not going to let the people who are actually like have traction in ministry do something. So Tom does a giant to the church body. It was marketed as a night of worship of our Lord and Savior. If you look at it with everything
like a good
we've
old
talked,
family Christmas carol and worship service.
Yep. But if you look at it under the lens of everything we've talked about, it was kind of a F you, Corey and Topanga. F you, Etheridge. We don't need you.
Yeah.
Me and Schroeder, we got this.
Yeah.
With Froggy playing a guitar behind him.
Yep. My guitar.
He can't even. He doesn't even have his own guitar.
Hold on, though. Let me tell you. Wait, hold on. I know. This is another good one.
Oh my god, I can't even.
Okay, so I decided years ago, like right after my second divorce, right, that I was going to learn to play the bass guitar. And I love playing the bass guitar. I mean, I'm going to be honest, it was a hyper fixation. But you know what? That's the cool thing about us ADHD people is, for 15 minutes, we are like experts at everything. Or however long the hyper fixation lasts, right? But so right after I got divorced from my second husband, I was looking for a bass guitar because I wanted to play. I was running in circles with people, whatever. I had some musician friends and they would have like music get-togethers and I would go and sing with them. And it was a lot of fun, right? We'd go out. Sometimes we just go to different people's houses and have jam sessions like on a Saturday, right? And so that's where I picked up the idea of learning to play the bass guitar because one of the guys taught me to play the bass and he was like, you'd be really good at it, right? We're going to play the bass guitar. Beautiful. So, anyway, I wanted to go to pawn shops and I'm a little weird about pawn shops. So I had asked my ex-husband to go to the pawn shops with me because I was like, that's more your kind of people. I know I sound like I'm such a horrible, judgmental person, but I am. Okay. So I was like, I can't go to pawn shops by myself, but you're definitely pawn shop people. So right, wrong, or indifferent, this is who I am. And so I took him to go to the pawn shop and I couldn't find anything. So then I ended up at a music store and I kid you not, I was walking out of the music store and like this light from heaven shone above over this bass guitar. It's phenomenal. It is like this beautiful mahogany burgundy-ish color, but it has like the inlaid pearl flames going up the neck of the bass guitar. And I kid you not, they are camouflage. Like, yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, it's got camouflage flames on it, right? This bass guitar was like $500 or something like that. And I was like, I will be back for you, my pretty. It is my mission to be back for you soon, right? And we're driving back from this music store. And I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, I need to get this. I want this guitar. Like, I'm just rattling on about it. And my ex-husband's like, you don't deserve a $500 guitar. And I was like, excuse me? Tell you what, in 1 week I went back. It might have taken me months and I might have even forgotten about it. But I was back and said within 7 days to buy that $500 guitar. I did everything I could for that money because I was like, don't tell me I don't deserve a $500 guitar. So a few years later, I am doing a theater production and I get involved with this lady out of this theater show and she sings in a band and I start to go jam with them for a little bit and playing the bass, and we're just kind of messing around or whatever. But they need more of like an acoustic sound. And so I was like, well, why don't I go? I was like, well, they make like acoustic basses. I mean, and I'm not talking like the stand up, like bluegrass bass here, but like actual bass guitar that you don't plug in. And so that prompted me to buy one of those because I was fiddling around playing bass with them, and the acoustic bass sounded a lot better. But I bought it was an acoustic, but you could plug it in to an amp, bass guitar. So I now have a few collection of guitars at this point in time. And then that kind of fell away. You know, I fell out of hanging out with them, whatever. So Froggy is going to play the bass. And so he's using my first bass, right? Like he's trying that one, and he doesn't really like it a whole lot. And I think Tom had one that he tried to play and he really didn't like it. So then he would start practicing at home, and the acoustic bass was bigger. And he really liked the acoustic bass, and he liked that he could play it at the house and practice without having to be plugged into
have an amp. And
yeah. And so he would practice for worship practice with this acoustic bass. And then eventually he started taking it because it could be plugged in. And then it became his guitar.
But it's...
And he left with it.
Oh, no way. He took it?
I kind of gave it to him. I mean, like, I didn't argue. It's like, yeah, sure, you can. It's yours. You can have it. I don't really want it anymore anyway. I probably would have. I don't know what. I probably would have gotten rid of it. It was contaminated.
I love.
I had a dumpster party of anything that had his. Vibe on it.
Yeah. I just love the thought that he's living in a house that his name is not on. He is working at a job that he's not the boss, his wife is the boss. And even the one thing that he is doing, his instrument belongs to his wife. I love that. I never knew that it was your guitar. That's my new favorite thing.
Yeah. I don't know. I was like, but honestly, like you said, this is the story of Froggy. Everything he has at this point, up until this point, it's not him. It's not his. Yeah. It's all somebody else's that
he lays claim to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Burning Butterflies is a listener-supported podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by our amazing supporters on Patreon.
Follow the link in our show notes to learn how you can become a Patreon supporter too. Supporters get exclusive access to bonus content each month, including outtakes, cut content, and supporter-only episodes. If you've enjoyed this episode, please leave us a rating on your listening platform.
Burning Butterflies is a production of Asha Media. Thank you for listening.